Hello everybody, it's Peter with an I, S-T-E-W-A-R-T, author of the book, Rental Car. Welcome to tutorial number 1. There's a number of reasons for these tutorials. It's not a bad idea to do a little research before buying any product. Books are unique because it's not necessarily the money that you have to worry about. It's the time and effort reading that book. I want to be very forthcoming when I say, rental car is not for everyone. If it is for you, that's great. If it's not for you, it's important that you know. Rental car has elements of mystery and elements of suspense. But as you'll come to find, the main purpose of the book is to be thought-provoking. It's meant to raise questions concerning fairness, ownership, rules, and to shed a light on the power of depictions. And when I say depictions, it's not only drawn depictions. I'd like to open up the definition to include verbal depictions, witness testimony, an account of things, both spoken and written. Two people may see the same thing, but their descriptions may be completely different, and these depictions can be used in powerful ways. There's a number of reasons for people to take a pass on rental car. One, it is confusing. It's not horribly complex. The story is fairly simple in the regard it only involves a handful of characters. And aside from occasional backstory, it's fairly steady in its chronological movement forward. So where does the confusion come in? The point of the book may be confusing. I'll give an example. A man steals a car. An hour later, he returns the car and is furious when he receives no reward. End of scene. That's the end of the example. Those two sentences have the potential for being interesting or uninteresting. Within the context of one book, an action-adventure, coming-of-age romance novel, a man who steals a car and is furious when he receives no reward is simply a selfish person. No more to read into it. The reader must only remember it's a selfish person and Rental Car challenges the reader to look closer, to analyze the dynamic, to pour a little water on it and watch it grow and unfold in different ways. Let's analyze together. It seems absurd the thief would hope for a reward, but it doesn't seem absurd to the thief. If one party believes a complaint is absurd and the other believes it's legitimate, does a complaint materialize as absurd or legitimate depending on the environment? If the two were surrounded by townspeople who were shaking their heads with shame over the behavior of the car owner, the mood is very different than if people were shaking their heads with shame over the behavior of the thief. If there was a town meeting and a judgment were passed, if the complaint was seen as legitimate, there's a very real chance the thief would be granted reward. If the complaint is seen as absurd, the thief can never hope to win a reward. Let's explore a different path. When we hear about the angry thief who feels cheated out of reward, we wonder, how can a person think that way? What's wrong with that thinking? The owner of the car did offer a reward for returning the car. It seems to make sense that anyone returning the car should win reward. The foremost reason we know this is silly is because we suspect manipulation. We rely on a series of unspoken agreements that form the fabric of society. These work in concert with unspoken implications. The concept of reward was meant for those with certain intentions, noble intentions. Let's ask a question. What will withholding reward do for future encounters? If reward is withheld once, will posting reward in the future have less of an effect? Will people be able to know the difference between withholding reward from a thief and withholding reward from a do-gooder? Again, perhaps it's the environment. if the thief and car owner were surrounded by townspeople who were shaking their heads with shame and lamented the notion all reward is withheld, regardless of circumstance. It's very different than if they were surrounded by townspeople who applauded the move and understood there's a difference. How hard would it be to distort the image of reality, the depiction of how things are, to make people believe one way or the other, to customize reality to suit your purpose? Let's go back to why rental car is confusing. The allegory of the stolen car is 2 sentences and involves only 2 parties, but the meaning and implications unfold into a series of riddles. Within the story of rental car, simple allegories are presented, analyzed, and projected back into the narrative. Rental car is kind of weird that way. There are 2 more things which shouldn't be ignored. One is the sexual content. It's not like the book is chock full of sexual content. You may finish the entire thing and wonder where the supposed adult content is. There's not a lot of rated R stuff in there, but it's there. The story of rental car looks behind the curtain at things ordinarily kept private. I exchange ideas with a great many people. I hearken upon the knowledge, experience, and rely upon the guidance of some very intelligent people. Some of these people, whom I hold in high regard, steer clear of works like rental car. They shy away from the vulgar. You may wonder, if I was concerned about it, why would I put it in there? The experience of rental car was designed to show the reader certain things. If you were to give a thorough analysis of society at any certain place, during any point in time, to get an idea of the thoughts, feelings, aspirations, and motivations of the individual, different elements of the analysis are connected to a part of oneself which is ordinarily kept very private. A young couple want to get married in colonial Jamestown. Why? How is their situation different than a young couple who holds off getting married in 1980s Los Angeles? Part of the reasoning may have to do with private matters, things that go on behind closed doors. Rental car takes a look behind closed doors as part of an analysis of modern America. The adult content is part of the reason for the tutorials. It allows the message to pass from writer to audience before, perhaps in lieu of, reading the book. The second thing readers should know about the story of rental car is there are parts of the book which are terribly insensitive. Every person has a good self and a bad self. For me, the good self hopes to do what's right and inspire others to do what's right by setting an example. And, for the writer, the intentions are apparent in the craft. Part of that good self, for me, involves some level of empathy. I feel pain when others feel hurt. We run into the same dilemma as before, and that is, if I was concerned about it, why would I write it? Why would I say insensitive things? The answer is much the same as before. To analyze society in an attempt to understand what makes people tick. The things that are made public are tied to strings, and these strings lead behind a door to something private. Private feelings that are best kept hidden behind a mask. When people feel very comfortable with each other and their conversations are behind closed doors in a private setting, the mask begins to come off. It may seem as if privacy and secrecy are virtually synonymous. Privacy gives the illusion of secrecy. Rental car explores the difference between privacy and secrecy. Words spoken in private can have tremendous power if pulled from secrecy and sold at auction. I generally try not to poke at the eyes of things people feel is important. That's not the case in rental car. Characters in rental car are painfully frank during their private conversations. Part of the goal of rental car is to make readers squirm. It's important to understand rental car is, in part, a cautionary tale. We see what happens when people aren't cautious about what they say in private. We circle back to the importance of these tutorials to avoid unnecessary confusion. I'll reiterate the fact I exchange ideas with different people who come from different backgrounds, different schools of thought, people with a deep understanding of domains I know little about. I rely upon their guidance. The story of rental car brazenly stomps on totems they hold high. It's important to understand why. I'll speak more of rental car in tutorials to come.